Welcome to Retech. It's been a while since these machines were out, but really this C64, as in the C64 Maxi, I always believed was quite a decent machine. It really does stand up to the wear and tear of a child, and it really does stand up to, you know, the general kind of usage as a Commodore 64, and it's fantastic. There is a few minor irritations on it, even though the firmware's been upgraded, and a lot of that centers around running disk images from, you know, the classic Commodore 64 view, as if it was a normal Commodore 64, but you know, it's overall it's a very good machine. But we're going to look at something I found out recently. Retro Games must have had a stock of Commodore 64 Minis, and they have been kind of for sale in what is basically your giveaway bins or your discount bins in game shops, etc. And there's quite a good reason for that, so be aware, because a lot of them, even though the 64 Mini had a few issues with speed and matching the correct speed of a original Commodore 64, well, these are way out, and you've got to be very careful when buying one. This is Marcus's machine. I have one as well here. This is his ultimately favorite machine. You know, he started off on a TI 9948, and he loved that machine until he got hold of a retro C64 or the 64 Maxi, and that's become his kind of staple vintage or vintage style machine. Now, it does a very good recreation of the Commodore 64. This is it is an original one, but it looks different behind. It has had a few painted modifications and so on, but it's generally underneath a vintage machine. And as I said, it does an amazing recreation of a Commodore 64. The attention to detail, the whole machine is very, very good. Now, I can put Monty on the run on this C64 original, which is, you know, kind of using the later version of the Commodore internals, basically the 64G, or really the 64C as well, and it will sound really good. It'll run the way you expect it to, and the SID chip won't sound too much different. It's not quite as gritty because it doesn't have a lot of the flaws that the original SID had, but it, you know, you would be hard pushed to tell the difference unless they're side by side. And this is exactly the same when we put the recreated or the C64 Maxi, for want of a better term, on, and it runs and it sounds exactly the same. And I'll just show you now how it sounds and how it runs. Okay, and you can hear the tune playing now. I'll just listen to the tune. And so far you can hear it's exactly how it should be. And it's no different to what you'd expect, and it sounds really, really good. And the game plays at the right pace, and you know, everything. And the C64 Retro Games version is very, very good. Now, we're just going to come on to something that I found, and it concerns the C64 Mini. So now, here is my 64 Mini, and you can hear it playing in the background. Okay, sounds the same, looks the same, you know, it's virtually, you know, both machines on one on top of each other. You know, you'd think, yeah, it's cool, you got a mini version of a real 64, because as I said, the C64 Maxi looks like a proper, real, original Commodore 64. So now I'm just going to start off Monty on the Run. Okay, so here's Monty on the Run on the Mini. It all seems fairly familiar at the moment. And the tune's starting off. Very similar pace. Sounds very, very similar. And yes, as you can hear, it's exactly the same. These two machines playing exactly the same. The game plays exactly the ways it should, and it also looks, feels and sounds like a genuine Commodore 64, which is all good, which is how it was meant to be. But the surprising thing is that they're not all equal, and I'll show you that next. Now you can see we've got two Commodore 64s here, okay? You can hear, sounds very similar in the background. It's playing at the right speed, and I've taken the one you've just seen away for now, and these are two machines I bought at two different outlets, simply because they were reasonably cheap. You know, they're now bargain bin specials, and I thought, you know, I'll get one of these or two of these and just play around with them. At least I've got the internals to do something with if I want to as a project. Now, that all sounds good, and as you can hear, it sounds like the other Commodore 64 Mini. That is until you go into the same game. Here we go, screen starts. Can you spot the difference? It's not only slightly faster, it's probably 2.5 times as quick. Just listen to how fast it is. That's so much faster than even if you put the settings to NTSC, had everything set up as an NTSC machine, and it's screaming away. It's like so quick, it's just virtually unrecognizable, the tune. Well, it's recognizable, but not the way you'd normally hear it. It literally sounds like it's on some kind of fast forward speed. Then listen to it. And the thing is, the same goes for the game. I mean, everything's moving 1.5 to 2 times quicker than it really should. I mean, he's not only running, he's absolutely going at warp speed. I mean, it's quite entertaining to play, but it's not really the original game, is it? So, and that goes for both of these. Okay, so I'll just get the volume down and we'll talk about what's been done to them. All three machines, these two included, are running exactly the same version of the firmware. These models come within a few hundred models of each on the batch numbers, and there's nothing between them. The packaging's the same, the joysticks are the same, everything's the same, and yet these are running at twice the speed, and you cannot do anything about that. Now, regardless of whether you retrograde the firmware or put the latest version on or run it as PAL on the screen size or PAL as a general model type, no, they don't run at all. Now, there is a few little subtle differences, and I'll point that out. Now the first one that's probably not immediately noticeable under the lights of the you know, the camera and the studio light is the color. These might look very similar in color. Now I'll just open the back up the original one which you saw first. Can you see the difference? This one is actually very much of a different shade, and it's quite a big giveaway because it is technically kind of more darker brownish than these two. Okay, so there's one clue. The next clue is the actual color difference between these two models as well is very slightly out. It's not the same. This one is slightly lighter in shade under normal light conditions, which is a bit odd because they are all meant to be, you know, from the same batch, factory and so on. So why is there a color difference? But you know, unless you have them side by side, you'd never know. Now the other one is that this is a box for this one, and this is a box for that one. Now at first glance they look exactly the same, but they're not. You can see this one's very different in colour. It's a lighter red and so on compared to the actual decals on here, which are a darker red. Now the games on the back are exactly the same on this one, okay, and they look the same. They actually have exactly the same details on them. You've also got the E rating on here, which is everyone 10 plus. Now on the machine that runs at the correct speed, okay, we have a 7 rating, a Peggy 7, very different. And also the games on the back are slightly different. Not just in order, but in game. So for example, we have winter games down here instead of Spin Dizzy on the top one, which is quite a glaring one. We have Street Sports here instead of Paranoid or Paradroid, and you know, they are very different in their game selection. And you know, it seems that, you know, we have a difference in manufacturer, we also may have a difference in CPU inside and so on. And why is that? Why is there such a difference? Well, other than the box art, which is clearly different in colour, and the games on the back, that's clearly different in colour, we've got a very different setup on both machines. I actually think what's happened is that retro games have struggled to sell these machines, and I also think that we've got a USA, Canada and Mexico model, and that's the thing, because the ESRB was particularly rated for those regions. Now I don't know why there's a disparity between ESRB 10 plus and the UK/European rating of Peggy 7 year old and above, but you know, each country has their own rules. Now I also think they struggle to sell these in the US, and I believe that their surplus requirements were shipped over to the UK just to get rid of them. But the problem is, you're going to come across a 50 Hertz and a 60 Hertz difference, which means that things aren't going to match up on a UK system or a UK TV or a UK monitor and so on. So you're going to get those doubling the speed output, and that's a bit of a problem. So I wonder how many people actually have these who think that games run at this speed on a classic machine. You know, they must think they're not that slow. Why are these games so difficult? And it's going to give the wrong impression of the games themselves, which I think is a bit of a shame. But that's the biggest reason. If you're outside the US and you find a model with RGL001 instead of the 64 or retro games on that, where that number is on the back or the bottom of the box, then really you've got the wrong country originated model. Okay, so go and look for something else. This is why these are turning up at 20 and 30 pounds in bargain bins across the UK and presumably in many parts of Europe. So just be very, very careful of that when you go and buy a Mini or even a Maxi. If you find one that's cheaper than it should be, okay, check out that it's not designed to be a America, Canada, Mexico model, NTSC. Okay, so just be very careful. I will repurpose these for something else, which is not a problem for me, but it could be for other people, so just beware. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you would like to subscribe, and we'll do more on retro and retro related machines in the future.